classmates, I came in 2016 and I said, we need to do something because they keep talking about what Waco ain't. That's a lie. Waco is. And I came back, when I came in 2020, I did it again. But what I have discovered, and I shared with that gentleman when we were talking, and Mr. Robert, before he left, we talked about we do not come together. If your name ain't called, you will not be involved. If your name ain't, when they started Feasting the East 7 years ago, the first question I said, well, what are we doing outside of that? Are we feeding them one day and we releasing them the next day? We decided this year that to start sending out an assessment to see what is it that our community, not our perceived need, but the reality of the need. And when they tell you, don't tell them, no, you don't need that, I need to give you some food. Why are we feeding people that got $1 gazillion in food stamps? Why are we taking food to places that's quote unquote, they got thousands and thousands. Why aren't we going and educating them? This is your means to an end. Let me show you how to budget these food stamps that can get you through the rest of the year. Let me show you how to take these food stamps and get it to be what you want. Let me show you how to use housing and take housing and begin to show you how to budget so that you can eventually buy your house. If you don't have education, let me show you how to go about getting your GED or getting whatever it is, your certificate, so that you can move to the next level. And to bring back up these football, basketball, all these AAU, we throwing dollars there. Those are $4 that we are throwing to things that we think that are blessing and helping our kids. But guess what? I talked to several football coaches last year that said that the football ain't working anymore. They are starting now to turn and fight the coaches because they're not doing what they said. We are not giving and pouring and nurturing them. They need nurturing and discipline. Because they need to be nurtured and disciplined.
Because it's like this too. It's like we as people, it's like, okay, the older ones, right? It's like, all right, these kids are turning away from the football and basketball so easily because the music is way more exciting. The music, what they telling them in the music to do is way more exciting. So, what we, the older people got to do, since we know that music is actually deteriorating us, right? There are rappers out there that's not spewing that stuff out, and they actually millionaires too. But guess what? Y'all ain't listening to them. If we make them hype and get their numbers up, guess what the labels are going to sign in? They're going to sign the people that's going to teach you because that's where the money. They don't care about nothing but the dollar, right? So we're talking about the children. The children don't care that you're talking about entertainment ain't going to be that because guess what entertains them? And guess what they follow? The entertainers, the football players, and all this. So
that's us.
They don't care what you're saying. They care what they're saying.
So when we talk about
hold up,
Chicago. When we talk about entertainers, athletes, and we'll even throw politicians in there. We're asking our kids to line up for the lowest common denominator because the real aspiration should be the guy who is taking care of his family. Yes. Raising his kids, providing for his family. And what has happened is, and I know I'm just going to talk about Waco here, what has happened is those men are dispersed all over the city, but not concentrated in one community. I grew up in an era where those men, even though there were many fatherless homes in the neighborhood I grew up in, those same neighborhoods had probably a father in every other house as well. You understand what I mean? So there were a lot of kids that didn't have fathers, true enough. But there were Mr. Gibson and Mr. Miller and Mr. Jackson and all these guys who were in the home with their kids and they were raising their families, and we got a chance to look at them every day, live it out, right? Because they were in our community. And I'll say this: if you live in some of those impoverished areas in our city, right? Where do those kids get to see a Mr. Gibson, a Mr. Jackson, or Mr. Miller?
I will answer that. There are organizations that exist, and there are people in this room that can make it happen. Now, if you don't want to get off your couch I don't live there. I wasn't raised there. But guess what? I got up off my butt when I saw a need. My father didn't have that. He was outhouse poor. So when I was old enough to really know his story and recognize Mr. Bully, Joe Blocker, the men that sold into him, I wanted to be them because they helped my daddy. So my love for my daddy sent me back there, and I ain't raised there. I started off the show. I'm from South Hewitt, man. I'm from Spring Valley Road, man. The house was the third from the end of the block. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not a guy that's back there, because that's where I came from. But each one of us can make a choice,
Absolutely.
to partner with a young man. You ain't sonning him because you can't son him. That's suppressing yourself. But what you can do is partner with him. Me and Los was talking about when I first got here, forming a partnership where we let some young people learn how to do what he does with the catering business and finding him funding for it. We shouldn't expect him to give that. So having these organizations, again, that are able to access funds, we should be able to partner Tanya with some entrepreneurs. We should be able to partner Chris with some photographers. We should be able to partner Sean with some musicians and grow a ready workforce. We have a contractor in the room. We should be able to partner with her for a ready workforce. If she need make ready or clean up, we got access to these young people who we're saying need those skills, soft skills, as well as durable skills and trades. We have access to that.
But they don't want to work. They want to be influencers.
Well,
They,
but again,
that's because that's what has the most influence in their life. So we're going to have to work hard to become that influence.
but we're gonna have to go in. But
I
there's a
think-
reconciliation that also needs to happen, because just as you're saying, we're reaching out to the kids, if we're gonna bring back what, as he said, which is important, I believe family is definitely important. But please do not hear me saying that it's not necessary. I'm not
It's the
saying
most
that-
important.
It is the most important, and I'm not saying that it's not, but what I'm saying is sometimes it doesn't happen that way and it can still be successful is all I'm saying. But what I want to say even to him, not as rare as you believe, but I'm saying to him, just like you just said about giving those jobs to the kids, we also need to go out and teach some of these men the same skills. Some of them are coming from incarceration. We need to make sure Texas is the most unforgiving state that there is. And many of them that have been released that do serve their time for doing whatever they did, they come out and they can't survive.
Well-
So in the same way, our contractors, our club owner, our business owners, we need to be able to also gainfully employ, not just employ, gainfully employ them so that they can be an avid supporter, both financially, disciplined, loving. None of us have mentioned love in this room since we've been in here. Not one of us has mentioned love. Love is the cornerstone of every single
Absolutely.
thing, and it goes back to something that you said. Love, if their mother's heart for her child, would have made her walk away. But love also for that man would have made her walk away, because she would have recognized it's something more going on, and vice versa. But love, as you also said, that it wasn't in the room because nobody. No, it was you who said the room had shifted because of whatever else was there, and love wasn't there. And we also not talked about purpose. We've talked about aspiration, but no purpose. But that comes with family.
Uh-oh.
That comes from family. It comes from understanding church and community. It comes from understanding that God has assigned us all a purpose. And I'm not talking about your ritualistic Christianity. I'm not talking about your religious rhetoric. But what I am talking about is your relationship with God the Creator, the Father of all, who has given each and every one of us in this room something to do in this earth. And it is definitely different, like you used with the car analogy, but we're all of one body, with God being the head. Every other part, what being fitly joined together. I need you, I need you, I need you, you. Everybody in here feeds me. And when I fight you, the enemy stands up and he is victorious because we can't unify. That's what he does to the black community every single time. He did it in this room tonight if you didn't recognize it. We began to argue before we could come back to any time of ability to come up with solutions. and we can walk out this building. But when we in this building alone, we have enough strength and power to start the revolution of change. From this platform, this day, we can start it right now, and we can see a change in days because we show up.
I wanted to answer your question. You asked, like, how do we get kids to participate? I use an analogy called burn where the wood is dry. So if you know 2 children that are interested in what you do, that's all you're responsible for. Don't try to set no wet wood on fire. You're going to waste all your matches. So don't worry about the ones that don't want it. You know what I'm saying? You just find you 1 or 2 that do, and do your thing. Like you said, you operate in a different vein. You know, so just operate in your vein, but don't worry about nobody who don't want it. Just give it to the ones that do. And that's effective change. We represent households. Households are more powerful than nations. We just don't know it yet.
No, you're right.
You know, so operate in your sphere of influence. You know, I have a sphere of influence with certain young people that I conversate with, among my own children and others. That's all I can do. That's all I can get.
The adults gotta be able to. I'm gonna keep saying it. What brought us to this thing today was, I'm gonna say what this gentleman said. Your opinion is your opinion, right? So, but what got us here today is the altercation. Come on, y'all. Most of us in here, Generation X, we would have never seen something like that coming up in our day. We would have never seen those 2 people operate either way. So that's a problem. It's a problem that we go to violence with each other. It's a problem our murder rates is a problem. I mean, number one, let me say this, young man, you have to have an open mind. So we're all listening to you and taking what you're saying. So that's something else I tell my daughter who's almost your age. You have to have an open mind. So you can't just be ready to speak. You can't wait for people to get done so you can respond. You have to have an open mind. If there's change to come, we have to be open to listening to each other. So I'm still trying to understand, how do we get the adults, the opposite sexes? I say we're in a civil war. So how do we get the opposite sex to work together? Because the kids see us fighting. I have a family member that works at a school. One day, 25 fights. Andre, you work there. The parents come, and you would think they would come. When we were coming up, before I get to the house for skipping school, I didn't got 5 over with me. So I'm sold by the time I get to the house because I know number 6 would be 10 dollars, right? The parents came and they began to fight. Andre, you know that, right? So if we can't get, how can they teach these kids? How can they lead these children if we can't get along with each other as adults?
I think
Respect and love.
I think since the 60s, right? If you see the switch in like the generations, right? At one point you had it where the women want to be in the house with their man and be in the house with the family and all this and everything, right? Then they get to a point where or the family want to be together. It ain't just the women. Everybody want to be together, right? Okay. But then, but after a while, right? It comes to a mindset where after all this systemic and abuse or whatever we had, women had got a mindset to I can do it by myself. I don't need this. I don't need that because I got the money now. And the money is never going to equal to a body. It's never going to equal to the person. And vice versa.
It wasn't that we. So that's why I asked you.
I didn't hear what you said.
It wasn't that we were choosing that. You have to. That's why I keep saying, keep an open mind. I'm gonna tell you what my mother told me, and don't be offended. Respectfully speaking, this. My mother would tell me this, and at first I would get offended. She would tell me to read before she would have certain conversations with me. Yeah. So I said that to say, when slavery ended, prisons began. Right? Yeah. Prisons became privatized. So at one point we had 60% plus % of our black men between a certain age in prison. So some of these women that you're blaming, you know, you'll see, and I'm going to use these high-profile people. You'll see the Kevin Durant's. You'll see guys like that that praise their mother because their fathers weren't there, not because that man didn't want to be there, because he got caught up in, I have to sell this, or I have to do this to make, this is how we make money. Like Rocky said, America's a materialistic country. So they were warehousing our black men. So some people didn't have a choice. That's why I'm saying we got to stop pointing the finger.
So,
Like, I don't know what
so
you mean.
Adrian,
I don't know what you mean when you
Hey.
say you don't have a choice, cause
To
Hey.
raise your children by yourself if the man is rejected.
Adrian, I also want to add this, right? And when you talk about the 60s, you talk about a couple things, right? We know about civil rights, right?
Right.
Right? And we also know about, social engineering, the Great Society, things of that nature, and how it impacted families. But I want to talk about something else, and this is I don't even really know how to bring this up, but I'll try to do it in a best way fair. There was a time in America where, in order for a man to have his pleasure with a woman, he had to take her on as a wife.
Right.
Come on.
yes,
Right.
sex means marriage. Yes.
So when you talk about the
Now they marrying everybody.
so
Cause they ain't got
Hold on,
they give them access to sex.
I was going somewhere, brother.
Stop everything.
So now when you add, not only the 60s had, what we're talking about is sexual liberation is what we're talking about. And sexual liberation created women to have the same access to sex as men had in society. And that creates a situation where, as a man, we can go out and have sex, right? And but the fact of the matter is that most of the time, if men go out and have sex with, whether it be prostitutes or ladies of the night or dance hall girls, whatever they were doing back then. But when we have sex with a decent woman and she has casual sex with us, there's going to be a kid that's going to be created at some point. And then if I'm not married to that woman, what happens to that kid and that woman? And so that's part of the reason why you had families, women with children without fathers, because they made choices. Now, this was a societal thing. I'm not putting this on women or I'm not putting it on men. But when women have sex and they don't guard their bodies with a certain level of sanctity, then you end up with them sharing themselves with men who haven't committed to them and who may not have the character or the desire to be fathers and strong men in the community. And when that happens, that's just a byproduct of sexual liberation, civil rights, and also social engineering. So it wasn't
In
that
the
one
words of
thing.
Andre, what a solution. I agree. I do agree. And I was going to say that I was not going to go to Genesis to Revelation, but I got to go to Genesis to Revelation. Because when we bring in morality, we bring in marriage, we bring in abstinence, we bring in these things. We can even sum it up in when we talk about what is right and what is wrong according to our Creator and how things are supposed to transpire. We have to go back to where we have dropped the ball even there. Because we are and have re-identified what things are supposed to look like based on our own need or our own desire and want. When it's clearly in Genesis through Revelation. Now hear me. When I say Genesis through Revelation, I'm talking about Bible scripture. I'm not talking about our religion. I'm not talking about the fact that we use scripture for doctrine, because the Bible says that it's all God-breathed, profitable for doctrine, reproof, correction, and instruction in righteousness. Righteousness is right standing. Righteousness is doing right by my brother and my sister. And when we think about, we want to say Old Testament versus New Testament. Well, Old Testament is the law. New Testament is faith and grace, right? Old Testament law, 10 of those commandments, Jesus said, hang all 10 on 2. Love God and love thy neighbor as thyself. That would have ended that situation in Chicago. If they would have,
if he has a mental issue.
wait a minute, hold on, because they could have.
Who said he doesn't?
But what I'm saying is,
Y'all from Chicago?
what I'm saying is, we're talking about the root cause of it. I'm not saying that the what if. I'm saying the root cause. If we would adhere, all of us, adhere to that, we would not she would have walked away, or he would have walked away, or he would have never been in that frame of mind, and they would have been kumbaya. We don't live in that society, in that world, but we have to get back to a true assessment of every system that's broken. We are not teaching scripture, we're teaching church.
And I agree.
And when we
need to
do
stop saying
church,
that.
Right?
we do church that we don't do God.
Well, and what it goes back to is, right, over the course, from the 60s to now, the standard of families changed.
Right.
The standard of relationships changed. Even the standard between the interaction between men and women changed from the 60s
I
up
think
to
it
now.
only changed. You saying like with all people or just with
Us.
All people. No, I'm saying all
it's with
people.
us. It's us.
It's all
And
people,
plus,
bro.
and plus, I really don't care about. It's like I don't care too much about another race
This made me
because for the most part, guess what all them races is doing? Sticking together.
No, they're not.
No, listen, I'm gonna tell you.
Most Asians, what the Asian community do? Stick together. What the white community do? Stick together. What the Arab community do? Stick together. The only ones that's messed up is Mexicans and blacks.
Asian women marry outside their race higher than any other group of people in the world.
And that's fine, but at the nucleus of the Asian family is still together. They will give. They will.
Not those.
Yes.
Those that have been given the freedom to be whatever.
How many
they
places have
want
you
to be,
seen?
they
How many
are-
cities have you been to? Or states you've been to where it's a Chinatown? I can tell you 5 to 10 of them. How many cities have you been to where it's a black town?
Yeah.
There's a lot.
African town.
You're right.
No,
Where the whole neighborhood is that race, all they stores, all they restaurants, all they did, all they did.
Because it
It's
starts
not.
with them having a belief and
Together.
a love for themselves. We don't have that.
And that's what I said.
But we have
Everybody
to find-
else is together.
It's out of
We're the
necessity
ones
for
that's
them.
not. But anyway, I'm gonna go back to something that I wanted to say, right? All right, when it comes to I know how it sounds coming out of my mouth that I'm saying man versus woman. It sounds like that. I love women with all of me. I love black women. I love black women with all of me. But this is the question I gotta ask. Who gives the access to sex?
Say that again.
Who gives the access to sex?
So can I?
Women. That's it. That one, women. Men give the access to commitment and marriage, right? Okay. Now, if y'all knew y'all power, if y'all knew y'all power.
They do.
No, they don't. I'm going to tell you why they don't. I'm going to give you this right now.
They do, bro.
Okay. All right. Well, they might do. From what I see, I can tell that
They make choice. Okay, so this is what I'm saying.
What you-
Shut up. What I'm saying is they do know their power, but they make choices to engage in those activities for the same reason we do. Now you would want them to have. Hold up. You would want them to have a higher standard for their behavior, and when it comes to that, to protect our race as it moves forward, right? But how can you ask them to have a higher standard when we're operating at such a low vibration?
And you're the head.
All right, and this is why I'm gonna say.
You're the head.
It's like you
So
seem.
that's
It
the problem.
seems as if we're operating. Okay. This
Wait,
table.
before you
This
get
table.
started, Chicago, can I say something? Because Rocky made a statement a while ago, and then you, yes, please. Rocky said something about women and sexual liberation. So I want to say before you get started, as adults, because we're not talking about children, right, Rocky? We're talking about adults.
Yeah.
So as adults, we all of our, I'm gonna go back to what Lisa's saying. All of our morals have dropped because guess what? Nobody put a gun to that man's head to go ask that father to marry. And that, I mean, I don't know too many men that married the woman who gave the best sex of their life. As a matter of fact, those women, from what I understand from men, are at least likely to get married. So they marry women for other qualities. So how is it on the woman? Don't get me wrong. Now I agree with you. Casual sex has ruined our relationship.
Yes.
I do agree with you on that. But how is it just on the woman? That's on
No, I didn't put it
I'm
just
not,
on the
I'm
woman.
not saying that it's just
No,
on the
I was talking
woman,
about Rocky.
but yeah, it's like I'm not saying that it's,
No. I would. So what I was doing was putting it like this, right? I was just saying this, Avery. If the woman operated in the standard of the '60s, we would get the same result in the 2000s as we got in the '60s. Because then you have daughters who would stay under the roof of their father until they got a husband.
Okay, now let me address that real quick.
So-
okay. So it's a college professor, and I know y'all. I know I Andre understands, all y'all read, y'all understand too, so forget it. College professor that wrote a book, and he said something about why people research why black women don't marry. So most black women, and I'm not saying that men don't, most black women here have some kind of education degree, whatever the case is, and more than likely in here the men do too. But statistic-wise, again, 70% of us get our 4-year degree when we enter college versus 30% of y'all. So for me, money has nothing to do with love. I'm old school. I'm exactly who my grandmother was to a T. So money has nothing to do with love. But to some people, they'll say, you know what, if I work this hard to get this, I work that hard to get that, I need somebody that can match me here. And a big thing that we're leaving out, Rocky, you know this, and Andre, is warehousing of black men in prison. So during the era we were coming up, so many of our men, I mean, we know people that got out, they had a bag of crack, or maybe they got out for conspiracy, they was giving them brothers 20 years, 25 years. So they warehouse our black men. So these men weren't available. Mother Nature still couldn't tell you to go out and procreate. She still tell me, and I'm 50, and I'll be telling her ain't nothing coming out of it. But she still tells me. So Mother Nature still tells you to go procreate. So so you have all these things that have infiltrated to what's going on. So it's not so much that black women just got, or women just got sexually liberated and just went out and started doing this. This study shows that black women don't want to get married because he thinks that black women want to get married. It's a lot of black women that are saying, no, I don't want to get married.
But they want, so they don't want to be wives, but they want to be baby mamas. That's what you just told me.
They want children.
They want to be baby mothers, but not wives. Is what you just said.
Anymore.
I said they don't want to be wives, right?
So this is
we don't
this
believe
is
in the institution of marriage.
so this is what I'll say. This is what I'll say about that. And I don't want to disagree with you because I hadn't looked for a wife in a long time. So I'm not going to disagree with you. But I would say this, that any woman who would have access to good husbands, I doubt that they would want to be single, considering all the hold up. I'm considering how easy the life can make it for a woman when she has competent husbands in their life.
That's what the study says. The study says again that a lot of black women, because black women have thrived, black women are educated, and I know some black men don't want to hear this. But the moving forward, the progression, we have a higher education, or we have a higher graduation rate than any other race, gender combined. So that
and the lowest rate of marriage.
Hold on, and that's why
y'all focusing on education instead of the family.
You're fighting, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the information out so you can understand. That's why I said an open mind is very important. So that's why I'm not saying it's me, because again, I come from money doesn't matter. I'll dated men to make minimum wage and whatever. It don't matter to me. I'm saying this is what these women are saying is, hey, I don't want to date an ex-felon, or hey, I don't want to date a man that doesn't have his 4-year degree, or hey, I don't want to date a man who's not a property owner who don't make 6 figures because I do. That's the problem. So how do you get past, like you said, a qualified what they think? Now I don't believe that. I think money plays too big of a role in relationships.
So let me ask you this, man, and this is something that I kind of had to adjust my thinking pattern for this, because you're talking to a man who encourages daughters to get degrees, who encourage them to be independent and self-sufficient. But watching my oldest daughter build a family, I realized even in that, I could have stressed being a wife and a mother and the matriarch of a family even more than I did. Luckily, she's a gifted and talented woman, and she knew what she wanted, and she went out and created the family.
Did she marry a man compatible to her?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But my point is, she wanted, regardless, when I wanted to send her to Howard to pursue journalism, she wanted a family.
Right.
She had graduated graduated college and all that. She wanted a family. So what I'm saying is, and then I had to shift my mindset and think about this. We should be fathers. If you have young daughters, you should encourage your daughters to be educated and all those things, but also impress upon them how important it is that they go out in the world and be accepting of being a wife and a mother.
So we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So here's the problem. I'm going to say what Andre said, solution-based. here's the problem, and again, I'm not going to bring any of my personal issues in here. When I discuss and debate, I typically don't, because it's 7.4 billion people in the world, and so I'm not the majority of anything, okay? But what I'm saying is, when they interview these women, what these women are saying, not me, what these, Chicago, not me, what these women are saying is, these men don't match them education-wise, money-wise, asset-wise. So they're saying, I don't have anybody, because your daughter, you said, should marry somebody that's compatible to her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
They met very young. And
every
so,
human, more than likely, like Chicago said, wants to be with somebody. We are put on here to procreate and to
First rule.
Every
That's the
human
first
more than
rule.
likely does. And what you just said is, if she found a good man or if he finds a good woman, they're going to get together. Again, so Andre is talking about solutions, we kind of think the same. When these women are saying, I don't have enough pools, so if the numbers are 10 educated women, I'm not going to use the word successful, if these women think they want somebody educated, 10 educated women versus one, if that's the number, because we're born one-to-one, by the way. We're born one-to-one. So if the numbers are 10 educated women versus one educated black man, that's all I date, because our generation, that's all we date. It's getting lower with the lower generations. They sort of, that's how they raise. How is she, what
so this is what I'll say is that encourage our young women to, hey, when you go to school and you become educated, certified, qualified, whatever,
Find your husband at school too.
either find it at school.
70% versus 30%.
Okay.
The numbers still skewed.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying.
Numbers still skewed.
What I'm saying is,
Independent yourself
he
out
don't.
of marriage.
The man that I would hope that the man that you marry, you love him first, because love is required for a woman to stay with a man, because men are very difficult, and she has to love him in order to stay with him. The other thing, it's just reality. The other thing is, the younger a woman is, to me, the more hopeful, the more energetic, the more impressionable she is, and she needs to be pliable and impressionable to be a wife and a mother,
How do we
and
get
to
the
want
numbers,
to
man?
exist in the role of the matriarch of the family.
Well, we into a lot of macro, man, and we're gonna fail at the macro every time.
What you mean?
When you first started your statement, you were on the micro. You were talking about your nuclear household with your daughter. That is your sphere of influence. You ain't got no more than that. Nobody.
Absolutely.
Some people have a larger platform where.
But I'm speaking to the numbers that Adrian was talking about.
But the numbers will always lead us to failure because they're macro. We have no control over the macro. We have control over the micro.
I disagree.
So,
I think the work that you do with children controls the macro when you encourage more by young black men.
but they're one-to-one interactions. I see what you're doing, but they're
baby, it ain't gonna
one-to-one
happen
interactions.
overnight. It's not gonna happen overnight.
Nah.
But if we're not having these conversations, if we're not focusing on these things, and again, nobody still hasn't addressed the issue.
I
Because we
think
start
we-
talking about black women not marrying, and he thinks it's because nobody will ask you to marry. Sometimes, and I won't bring up my personal experience, sometimes you may not think the person matches you, right? So if these women are thinking this, and again, I was raised where money had nothing to do with us, so that's not my plight. So for these women who feel like they don't have qualified candidates, according to this professor at Howard University, if these women feel like they don't have qualified candidates, that's why they're having casual sex. That's why they're doing those things. How do you fix that?
These women are educating and independenting. Oh, that's a word. It just came out like that, but they're so they're educating themselves and being so independent that they're educating and independent themselves out of the relationship, because now they're going to get all these degrees and all this. But guess what? The man don't really. Most men, black men, we don't have.
Don't they deserve to have expectations of?
No, they cool to have, but we don't have the luxury a lot of times as black men to go to school like you.
Why
do.
not? Why not? What's the
Because
difference?
if we gotta hit the. Guess what we gotta do immediately? A man gotta get some money immediately. When I get out of my mama's house, I have to make money immediately. With you being a
Wow.
woman, with you being a young lady and raised up, you are more subject to being taken care of and more.
No.
Yes, you guys have way more
Talking about white
things.
women, not black women.
Can you just stop cutting me off for a second? Just let me get it out. If you gotta understand, y'all have so many things in place to get you to those points. You got all the aid and the weight and the who to help y'all. We don't have the same things that y'all have.
If you don't have a child, you don't have those benefits.
Yeah, that's a lie. That's a lie when you say that you don't have, because there's plenty of women that don't got child that still get food stamps and they still get Section 8. Yes, you can. That means that y'all don't know what y'all talking about because I come from that. I know for a fact. I had Section 8 and I didn't have kids at the time. You can't tell me that. I know. Now, most men, that they not gonna get that because most men, we're not taught to go get help like that. We're taught to be the help. We're taught to be the
But
help.
I think
We're not
that's
taught
why we're here.
That's why we're
We're
here.
here to educate, to make sure that
so
those.
now, when you say the women are being, these women are not marrying because it is the man is not matching to them. How is the man not matching you? You think that I gotta know the same things you know in a book to match you? Do you think that's where you're going wrong when you think that I gotta make the same type of
We're
money
not
as you? I gotta be same educated as you. I could be a garbage man.
Yeah.
That's what I want to
That's
be.
not realistic, sir.
Yeah, but that's a generalization of what you're doing. So right now, you can't fix what she's talking about because it's 70-30. The ratio's way off.
What's
It's
70-30?
College graduates.
Oh, I just said, this is what I'm saying. I know it's 30 men
Listen what I'm
and
saying.
70 women.
You can't fix that right now. It takes a generation to fix what she's talking about. So what you got to do is build a plan for your young men now,
That's what I'm
your
saying.
middle-aged men,
That's
the
what I'm
20 in their 20s,
Yeah.
and then your 30-year-old men. You got to educate those. Until we fix those,
Everybody
and keep them out
don't
of jail,
want education. Y'all gotta understand that. That's what I'm saying. It's like a
So-
woman is
so,
gonna make a
okay.
man want what she wants to be.
So
with
Chicago,
him.
let's make this simple. Let's make this simple.
No.
Okay.
Let
make
me
this-
let me make what I want to make and learn what I want to learn, and you learn what
Hold
you
on.
want to learn. And let's build a
I-
house. You talking about I need to be
No.
smart as you? No, be smart.
No.
You be the smart person.
Hold
then.
on.
Listen
Well,
what
I gotta
I'm
be
saying.
smart.
Chicago.
It's
Chicago.
50-50.
Chicago, hold up. This is what I'm asking. This is a specific question. What are the other 40 women who graduate from college, what should they do in their pursuit of a spouse? Where should they go? Since they didn't find them in college, where do they go and find their spouse? Because they spent 4 years educating themselves, learning school. Their peer group has all married. Their peer group is all
You
married.
know what happened?
So we
You know
don't
what happened?
we don't
They
like
didn't
the
focus on
same.
the men that was with them.
We don't like the same disparities when we were talking about muscles earlier. And we were talking about muscle mass and non-muscle mass making us not equitable. Because equal means same. Equitable means you both got the same skin in the game. So we didn't like it when we was talking about muscles earlier. But now we're talking about education and we still don't like it. So we got to make up our mind whether we're going to be equitable or equal.
What do y'all
You know,
want to hear? What?
If we can be equitable, we can share space together because you're 5'2" and I'm 6'1". I know that you need a box to see over the fence and I don't. But we can look over the same fence if I bring you a box.
Those other
So
40 women
let me finish my thought. So if I have a woman who is highly educated and we choose to try to make something work out together, she can bring me a box to stand on until I grow. Likewise, it should go both ways. So that's equitable. But we in here talking about equal, which ain't gonna ever happen. So we got to talk about equity, providing resources for the weak so that the weak can become strong. That is where we're failing. We're looking at, I got it and you don't. We're looking at it as if I have it and I can give it to you, I will. And if I have it and I can give it to you, I will. Because that undereducated brother has things that he brings to the household that are valuable. They're no less valuable because he's undereducated. But if you show him the way to get educated, then the equity grows for both of you.
So,
But we're fighting and there's no need to fight. Let's just seek equity.
I agree with that 30%. That 30% of men, that 30% of men that's graduating, guess what they'll do? 9 times out of 10. A lot of times the woman they with ain't as educated as them, don't make the same amount of money as them.
That's not true.
I said 9. Look,
That's not true.
most men that's in relationships, 9 times out of 10, most men are the breadwinners. Yeah, that's the truth. But okay. I said the ones that's educated. I said the 30% of men that are educated that you saying, I guarantee you more than half of them got women that's not as educated as them.
Right. So let me say this. We you know, Adrian, your statistic was what, 70-30?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let me give you some Bible. All right.
Come on now.
I just want to give you some Bible because what we're dealing with is nothing new, right? Solomon said in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. If you stick around, you're going to see it repeated, right? But Isaiah the prophet said this. He says, in that day, 7 women will take, that's your 70%, right? Will take a hold of one man and say, we're going to take care of ourselves. But what it says, we will eat our own food and provide our own clothes. Only let us be called by your name. Take away our disgrace. Is that not what we're talking about right now? You're saying that women, we're more educated. You're saying they shouldn't be more. Wait a minute. Hold on. Their education is causing them not to value family as it once was valued. Yes. But we are operating in a space that, guys, we can't change what is unless we go to the generations below us. We are only 4 generations deep living.
You say below us? You talking about the kids?
The kids.
Okay.
We are only 4 generations at best. If there's 5 generations in any family, that's a true blessing. But we're 4 generations deep. In 4 generations, if we can't go to that elder, the oldest one, and get some wisdom that fell down to this one, that fell down to this one, that we can pass along to another one, that's why we're continuing to fail. We cannot talk at this stuff and expect change. We do have to hear each other. We do have to be present with each other. We do have to connect with each other, not just in arms, but connect in the idea of, you know what you're saying does not quite settle with me, but we are going to operate and walk and see where this leads us. We'll try what it is. Oh Lord, wrap it up. We're going to try what you said and see if we can go forward. But at the end of the day, show up. Show up. Titus 2 teaches. Titus, you teach the older, teach the young. Everybody in here can do it. One of the things that I also know is we have kids that we're teaching, but they're going right back home to the same environment that we're pulling out of them. So we need to go back. That's where I was going with the generation. We got to go to the family as well. Yes. We can't just teach a child on the football field, and yes, I'm 100% with you. In the same way you got me for an hour and a half, give me 30 minutes at the top or the bottom so I can pour something in them. But also touch the families and say, Mom, Dad, or Mom, I got some people that I want to mentor you. We mentoring families. We got to mentor families in order for change to truly happen.
You remember how you said just a moment ago, like it's nothing's new under the sun. Basically, everything is gonna get repeated at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The best time as a black community we had was in the '60s. They did it the best.
Well,
let's copy them.
Well, man,
let's teach our kids. Let's teach our kids to copy them because this might be a little. We gotta teach them.
This has been a really rich conversation, man. And again, we started out this conversation talking about the mother and son that were recently acquitted of murder. They were, put it like this, they were dismissed. Charges were dropped, charges were dismissed. And I'm thankful for that because I believe that they were acting in a lawful fashion, regardless of what anybody else thinks. I think they were in a lawful fashion. I also want to say that we've had a really rich conversation today about a lot of different things. We've talked about, we've got a sermon given by Pastor Ward. We've had a Statistics 101 given by Adrian. We've got a lot of hood knowledge from our man Chicago. We have the activist in the building, which is my man Andre, who's doing the work on the ground. And so, man, this has been a rich conversation. with Let's Get Cozy. Thank y'all for tuning in, and Tanya will let you know when the next episode will be.